Ryan Mitchell thought stepping into Haggett Hall would be like disappearing into a crowd, the way he'd perfected in the Portland suburbs for 18 years. Seattle rain drummed against the dorm windows, matching the anxiety pounding in his chest as he dragged his camera bag down the narrow corridor. Room 412. His hands trembled with the key, hoping his roommate would nod hello, then retreat to opposite corners. The door revealed organized chaos. Lacrosse gear scattered across one bed, flannel shirts on every hook, and chocolate chip cookies warming the cramped space. Connor Hayes emerged from behind a mini-fridge, 6 feet of messy brown hair and easy confidence, wearing a backwards Spokane high cap and a grin that could power the dorm. Ryan. Right, Connor's voice carried warmth of someone who'd never met a stranger. I'm wrestling this fridge into submission and losing badly. His Carhartt jacket hung open over a faded band t-shirt, revealing forearms built from years of checking opponents into boards. A worn leather bracelet circled his left wrist. Connor Carter, he added, extending a hand that gripped firmly without crushing. From Spokane, 4 hours east through the mountains. Mom sent cookies to bribe my roommate. Hope you're not allergic to sugar or excessive friendliness. Ryan managed a weak handshake, embarrassed by his cold fingers. Ryan Parker. Portland suburbs. No allergies. Connor's laugh bounced off their walls, genuine and infectious. He grabbed Ryan's bag without permission, muscling it toward the window bed. Already claimed the outlet side for my CPAP machine, Connor explained. Dad's military sleep habits rubbed off. You cool with the rain view? I love falling asleep to weather sounds. Ryan nodded, unsure how to respond to someone who shared personal details like trading cards. While Connor cued music from his speaker, Ryan quietly made his bed with gray sheets, watching this stranger who talked like they'd known each other since childhood. Connor recounted his drive from Eastern Washington, how he'd almost hydroplaned on Interstate 90, how his mom packed enough snacks to feed a battalion. He spoke not to fill silence, but because he genuinely wanted Ryan to know these fragments of his life. That first night, Ryan lay on his chosen top bunk, listening to Connor's steady breathing below. He'd picked the upper bed partly for solitude, partly because Connor's presence felt too large, too warm. Ryan had spent high school perfecting invisibility, but somehow Connor's sleepy goodnight bro made the foreign room feel safer than his childhood bedroom. Days blurred into unexpected rhythm. Connor dragged him on morning jogs around Drumheller Fountain, despite Ryan's protests about hating cardio. Slow pace. I'll match you, Connor insisted, sharing an AirPod and filling drizzly runs with stories about his lacrosse team, about breaking his collarbone taking a brutal check. Late nights found them both awake, Ryan grinding organic chemistry while Connor tackled psychology assignments. Connor would slide hot cocoa beside Ryan's laptop, whispering so neighbors wouldn't complain. I don't understand how molecular formulas save lives, but I'll stay up so you're not studying alone. Every morning, Ryan woke to his blanket folded in cold water at his bedside. Every time he stumbled back from lab sessions, notes appeared, pizza leftovers in the fridge, extra coffee pods stocked. When exam stress rendered Ryan mute for days, Connor would drape an arm around his shoulders and suggest coffee runs. Ryan grew accustomed to Connor's presence in ways that surprised him. He stopped flinching when Connor's midnight memes made him laugh out loud. He began anticipating Connor's stories about Spokane visits, his mom's dinner rolls, helping his dad repair farm equipment. In their tiny space, between perpetual Seattle drizzle and Connor's homemade cookies, something quiet began growing that neither dared name. Ryan found himself counting Connor's breaths while he slept, smiling at Connor's sleepy mumbles about assignments or craving his mom's cooking. But falling for your straight roommate wasn't part of any college survival guide Ryan had read. Stories like theirs remind us that profound connections often begin in ordinary moments, when vulnerability meets unexpected kindness where we least expect to find home. Want to hear what happens when these feelings become impossible to ignore? Subscribe to Heart Stories for more stories of love, identity, and courage. By November, Ryan had memorized the cadence of Connor's breathing, how he mumbled poetry fragments in sleep, how he kept philosophy textbooks stacked beside his pillow. Ryan knew Connor called his dad every Sunday, knew he worried about farm payments, knew he wrote lyrics in notebook margins when nobody was looking. What Ryan didn't know was how much longer he could pretend his chest didn't tighten when Connor walked around in boxer briefs, or explain why Connor's accidental touch during Netflix marathons left his skin burning for hours. That rainy Tuesday night, Ryan returned from lab near midnight, soaked from forgetting his umbrella. He expected to find Connor asleep, but discovered him sitting rigid on his bed, phone gripped so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Connor's face held ghostly pallor Ryan had never seen. His normally bright eyes stared at the screen like it contained terrible secrets, shoulders trembling with barely contained panic. "Connor," Ryan said softly, closing the door. Connor didn't respond immediately, locked in place by whatever message had arrived. Ryan stepped closer, noting how Connor's breathing had become shallow and irregular. "Talk to me," Ryan urged. Connor swallowed hard, voice emerging raw and broken. "Dad's having a heart attack. He's at Sacred Heart in Spokane. Mom called from emergency. They said his heart stopped for almost 3 minutes." The words hung between them like physical weight. Connor's phone displayed text threads with his mother, timestamps showing frantic updates throughout the evening. Ryan stood paralyzed for seconds, watching this pillar of strength crumble. Then instinct overrode social anxiety. Ryan climbed onto Connor's bed without permission, sat beside him, and pulled him into his arms with surprising decisiveness. Connor stiffened for half a heartbeat, then collapsed into Ryan like someone drowning who'd found solid ground. His face buried against Ryan's shoulder, breath hot and ragged. Ryan felt Connor's racing heartbeat through his soaked hoodie, felt tremors running through Connor's frame. Ryan's arms locked around Connor's back, holding tight enough that letting go seemed impossible. "I'm here," Ryan whispered. First time in his life, he'd said those words and believed he could help. "I'm right here. Connor." Connor didn't sob openly, just shook silently while breathing gradually steadied against Ryan's skin. Rain battered their window with increasing intensity, but inside their room existed only 2 heartbeats trying to keep each other anchored. Ryan lost track of time. 5 minutes, an hour. It didn't matter. Slowly, Connor's panic subsided, but neither pulled away. Connor lifted his head until their faces hovered inches apart, eyes red-rimmed but still beautiful enough to make Ryan's breath catch. "Ryan," Connor whispered, voice cracked but grateful. Ryan didn't think. He leaned forward until their foreheads touched, close enough to feel Connor's shaky exhalation against his lips. "I'm here," Ryan breathed. The space between them felt charged, dangerous, like standing too close to lightning. Connor moved first, lips brushing Ryan's with terrifying gentleness, afraid of breaking something precious. The kiss lasted exactly 1 second before they both jerked apart, eyes wide in dim darkness. "Damn," Connor whispered, fingers still clutching Ryan's shirt. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's okay," Ryan managed, heart hammering so loudly he wondered if Connor could hear it. "Really, it's okay." They didn't kiss again that night. Instead, they held each other for hours, as if releasing their grip would shatter something fragile they'd accidentally created. Morning brought news that Connor's dad had stabilized after emergency surgery. Connor smiled with visible relief, but the expression seemed forced. Careful. Ryan smiled back, equally cautious not to meet Connor's eyes too long. Everything remained the same and completely different. Connor still burned ramen at midnight, still dragged Ryan on morning runs, still fell asleep with his head on Ryan's shoulder during movies. But now, every accidental brush of skin made them freeze momentarily. Every time Connor laughed, Ryan had to force himself not to stare at Connor's mouth. They never discussed that November night, pretending the boundary hadn't been crossed. But they both knew something fundamental had shifted, something that couldn't be easily ignored or forgotten. The most profound moments of human connection often arrive wrapped in crisis, teaching us that sometimes it takes nearly losing someone to understand how much they've come to mean to us. Winter descended on campus with brutal efficiency. transforming the University of Washington into a landscape of soggy scarves and perpetual coffee cups. Students huddled in larger groups against the cold, seeking warmth in common rooms and weekend parties that stretched until dawn. Connor's popularity had been evident since orientation. His lacrosse teammates adopted Ryan by association, including him in cafeteria takeovers and football watch parties. People began referring to them as a unit, Ryan and Connor, like their names belonged together. At first, the teasing felt harmless. "Bro, you two act like an old married couple." Jake from lacrosse would laugh when Connor automatically saved Ryan a seat in the dining hall. Connor would respond with characteristic humor, slapping Jake's shoulder. "Just jealous you don't have a better roommate." Ryan learned to laugh along, swallowing the bitter taste whenever someone got too close to the truth they were both desperately avoiding. But the jokes multiplied. Every time Connor slung his arm around Ryan's shoulders in public. Every time Connor insisted on walking Ryan back from late library sessions. Every time they returned from coffee runs with their hands almost touching. Someone would whistle or make kissing sounds. Ryan noticed subtle changes in Connor's responses. His laughter became forced. His eyes would dart away when teammates pushed too hard on their friendship. Some nights Connor lay silent on his bottom bunk, offering no sleepy goodnight. Then Emily Martinez entered their orbit like sunlight breaking through Seattle's gray. Psychology major from California, blonde hair that somehow stayed styled despite Washington rain, and a smile bright enough to illuminate lecture halls. She sat next to Connor in psych class, laughing at his jokes about Freudian slips and offering study group invitations. Ryan returned from photography lab one Thursday to find them bent over Connor's laptop, Emily's hair brushing Connor's shoulder as they shared earbuds. Watching something that made them both laugh, Connor glanced up, slightly flustered. "Ryan, this is Emily." "Emily, my roommate Ryan." Ryan managed polite pleasantries while Emily beamed at him with genuine warmth. She seemed sweet, intelligent, and clearly interested in Connor beyond academic collaboration. Connor didn't discourage her attention. A week later, Connor announced their first official date while tying dress shoes for dinner off campus. "Figured I'd give it a shot," he said to his reflection, not meeting Ryan's eyes in the mirror. "That's great," Ryan replied with his practiced smile, the one he'd perfected for deflecting attention. "She seems really nice." Connor nodded without enthusiasm and left their room, clicking the door shut with unusual gentleness. Ryan stared at his laptop screen, seeing nothing, feeling like someone had reached into his chest and rearranged his organs. Connor returned late, moving quietly in deference to Ryan's pretended sleep. Ryan listened to every sound shoes removed. Jacket hung carefully. Connor standing motionless beside Ryan's bunk for long moments. Morning brought the same Connor. Coffee for two? Questions about Ryan's photography assignments. Easy grins over spilled cereal. But now Emily's name lit up Connor's phone regularly, and each notification prompted a quick glance at Ryan before Connor would step into the hallway for private conversations. Ryan told himself Connor's dating life was none of his business. Connor liked girls. Connor was behaving like a normal college student. Ryan was just the roommate, nothing more. But every time Connor returned smelling faintly of Emily's vanilla perfume, Ryan lay rigid in his top bunk, staring at the ceiling until dawn, wondering why his chest felt like someone was systematically breaking his ribs. The worst part wasn't Connor choosing someone else. The worst part was pretending that choice didn't matter. That the night Connor had kissed him in desperation had been meaningless. That watching Connor build a relationship with Emily didn't feel like slowly drowning. Ryan became an expert at forced normalcy, laughing at teammates' jokes about being ditched for a girlfriend, shrugging when friends asked where Connor had disappeared to on weekend nights. But late at night, when Connor's breathing had settled and Emily's presence lingered in the air like expensive perfume, Ryan would pull his pillow over his head and wonder if anyone had ever died from loving someone who was determined to love someone else. Sometimes the cruelest form of rejection is watching someone choose safety over truth, even when you know they felt the same spark that set your world on fire. Ryan didn't mean to see them together. Friday afternoon, his advanced darkroom session was canceled due to equipment failure. So he returned to Haggett Hall expecting an empty room and maybe an hour to edit photos without Connor's well-meaning curiosity. But room 412 wasn't empty. Connor sat on his bed with Emily in his lap, arms wrapped around his neck, kissing him with slow intensity reserved for moments when you think nobody's watching. Her fingers tangled in his hair. His hands rested on her waist, and they moved together like they had been practicing this choreography. Ryan's keys slipped from his fingers and clattered against the floor like a gunshot. Connor jerked around, eyes wide with something between shock and panic. Emily straightened quickly, smoothing her hair with embarrassed efficiency. "Ryan," Connor started. Ryan didn't let him finish. He grabbed his camera bag and bolted, leaving his keys where they'd fallen. Ryan walked through Seattle rain for 3 hours without destination, letting December cold soak through his jacket until his fingers went numb and his thoughts quieted to white noise. When he finally returned near midnight, Connor was mercifully absent. From that night forward, Ryan became a ghost in his own room. He memorized Connor's schedule, returning only when certain of solitude. He studied in the library until security forced him out, ate meals off campus, climbed into his top bunk after lights out throughout the building. Connor tried reaching out. Coffee appeared beside Ryan's laptop with notes about making too much. Text messages went unanswered. Connor waited outside their door one evening, eyes bloodshot from exhaustion. "Ryan, can we please talk about what happened?" Ryan slipped past without acknowledgement, leaving Connor standing alone in the hallway. Saturday arrived gray and bitter, bringing Emily's suggestion for a weekend mountain retreat to see Snoqualmie's first snowfall. 8 students, 2 SUVs, 1 night camping under stars. Connor looked directly at Ryan when Emily proposed the trip. "If we're going, we're going." Ryan shrugged, unwilling to spend another weekend alone with his thoughts. They loaded into vehicles with forced enthusiasm, Ryan deliberately choosing the back seat of the second SUV while Connor rode shotgun in Emily's car, his arm draped casually over her seat as she navigated toward the mountains. Snow fell heavier than forecasted, coating Interstate 90 in treacherous layers that reflected headlights like scattered diamonds. Emily maintained confident speed despite worsening conditions, music blasting to keep everyone alert during the winding mountain ascent. The deer appeared without warning, a flash of brown against white snow. Emily jerked the steering wheel hard left to avoid impact. The SUV fishtailed on black ice, momentum carrying them toward the guardrail with sickening inevitability. Metal screamed against metal. Glass exploded. The world flipped sideways. Ryan's last conscious thought was Connor screaming his name before his head struck the window and everything went black. Ryan awoke on snow-covered asphalt, blood trickling from his temple. Connor's terrified face hovering above him like an angel painted in panic. "Ryan, look at me. Look at me," Connor pleaded, hands shaking as they cupped Ryan's face. "Open your eyes. Please stay awake." Ryan tried to speak but tasted blood and snow. Connor gripped his hand with bruising intensity, tears streaming down his cheeks as he whispered desperate prayers. I'm here. I'm here. Stay awake, Ryan. Please stay awake." The sound of Connor sobbing, raw and terrified, cut through Ryan's disorientation. This was someone watching their world collapse, someone facing the possibility of losing the most important person in their life. Ambulance sirens wailed up the mountain, but Connor refused to release Ryan's hand even when paramedics tried to work around him. He climbed into the ambulance, pressed against the stretcher, maintaining physical contact throughout the journey to Harborview Medical Center. Concussion, 8 stitches, overnight observation. The doctor assured them Ryan would recover completely with proper rest. Connor didn't listen to medical optimism. He sat beside Ryan's hospital bed, eyes swollen from crying, still gripping Ryan's hand like it was his lifeline to sanity. When their friends finally left, visiting hours nearly over, Connor looked up with eyes full of truth he could no longer contain. "I thought I lost you." His voice broke completely. "When you were lying there covered in blood, I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't breathe. Ryan." Connor rested his forehead against the bed rail, tears falling freely. "I can't lose you. Not as a roommate, not as a best friend, Not any of the stupid excuses I made up to avoid the truth. He met Ryan's gaze directly for the first time in weeks. I love you, Ryan. I've loved you since the night you held me when Dad was dying. I love you when your silence hurt me. I love you so much I dated Emily just to prove to myself I didn't. Connor leaned closer, voice shaking but steady. And it didn't work. It never worked. Ryan didn't answer with words. He shifted over, despite protesting, stitches, and pulled Connor down beside him. Connor understood instantly. Lips finding Ryan's with gentle desperation, terrified of causing pain. This time, neither pulled away. Sometimes it takes nearly losing everything to find the courage to claim what was always meant to be ours. Ryan woke to weak winter sunlight filtering through hospital blinds, his head throbbing like someone had used his skull for percussion practice. The first thing he felt was warmth, another hand wrapped around his own like it belonged there. Connor had spent the night slumped in the bedside chair, forehead resting on the mattress, hair disheveled from sleeping upright. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but he hadn't let go once. Connor. Ryan croaked. Connor jolted awake, immediately alert. You're awake. Oh God, you're really awake. His voice carried relief so profound it made Ryan's chest ache. Connor pressed Ryan's hand against his face, eyes shining with unshed tears. No more hiding, he said quietly but firmly. I can't pretend anymore. I was so scared I'd lied to myself that you were just my friend. He took a shuddering breath. I'm in love with you. Ryan, not roommate love, not bro love. I'm in love with you and it scares the hell out of me, but I can't do it anymore. Ryan felt tears spill without permission, hot drops running into his hair. Everything inside him broke open, months of careful restraint collapsing like a dam finally giving way. I love you too, you idiot. Ryan whispered through tears. I've loved you for so long. It was killing me. Their first official night together passed quietly in Connor's bottom bunk, wrapped in blankets, kissing slowly like they were afraid of breaking each other. Ryan fell asleep in Connor's arms for the first time without having to pretend it meant nothing. But morning reminded them the world existed beyond their small room. Word spread quickly across campus. Jake spotted them kissing goodbye in the parking lot at dawn. Within hours, their group chat exploded with finally memes and congratulations mixed with awkward silence from others. Some friends cheered their honesty, others grew suddenly distant. Connor read private messages from teammates, their concern barely disguised as questions. You sure about this? Bro, family conversations grew complicated. Connor's Sunday calls home moved from speakerphone to private hallway conferences. Ryan overheard raised voices, Connor's responses growing defensive. Once Ryan heard Connor's mother mention his father buying a new truck if Connor brought a nice girl home for Christmas. Long silence followed. When Connor returned, his eyes were red-rimmed, but his jaw was set. The pressure felt overwhelming some nights. Connor would stare at the ceiling, whispering fears about losing his scholarship, about disappointing his family. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm just confused? Ryan would answer honestly, I'm scared too. Scared you'll wake up straight one day and I'll be destroyed. They learned to heal each other incrementally. Connor began attending the campus LGBTQ center meetings alone first, then convinced Ryan to join him. They sat in circles listening to older students share stories about rejection and eventual acceptance. One senior told them loving someone of the same gender isn't wrong. It's just harder in a world that hasn't caught up yet. They practiced small acts of bravery. The first time Connor held Ryan's hand in public was at a tiny cafe near Red Square during evening rain. Nobody noticed, but they both shook with adrenaline afterward. Thought I was having a heart attack. Connor grinned. Same, Ryan answered, but I liked it. Christmas arrived with Connor making an unprecedented decision. He stayed in Seattle instead of returning to Spokane, claiming work obligations. They spent the holiday alone, cooking terrible pasta in the communal kitchen, hanging cheap lights, making love for the first time without fear shadowing every touch. That night, Connor whispered against Ryan's ear, I choose you no matter how hard. I choose you every single day. Senior spring arrived faster than expected. 4 years of Seattle weather, sometimes brutal, sometimes gentle, always persistent. The day came after Connor's final lacrosse game at Husky Stadium. Instead of celebrating with teammates, he pulled out his phone and called home on speakerphone. Ryan sitting beside him. "Mom, I need to tell you something important." Connor took the deepest breath of his life. "I've been dating Ryan for 2 years now. I love him more than anything." 10 seconds of silence stretched like eternity. His mother cried. His father stayed quiet before asking, "Does he make you happy?" Connor looked at Ryan, eyes shining. "Happier than anything I've ever had." His father sighed deeply. "Then bring him home for Thanksgiving. Your mom will make extra cookies." Graduation day arrived with rare Seattle sunshine blazing over Husky Stadium. After the ceremony, Connor pulled Ryan away to Drumheller Fountain, where 4 years earlier he'd dragged Ryan on their first jog. "Ryan," Connor said, voice hoarse from cheering. "That night in the hospital when I thought I lost you, I understood something." He pulled a new brown leather bracelet from his pocket, identical to the one he'd worn since freshman year. Not a ring. We're too young for that yet. But a promise. Connor tied it around Ryan's wrist with shaking fingers. "No matter what happens, I choose you every day." Ryan looked at the bracelet, then at Connor, eyes stinging. "I chose you the night you burned ramen for me at 3 a.m. freshman year." Connor laughed, kissing Ryan right there in the sunshine in front of thousands. Behind them, friends whistled approval. Connor's parents clapped and cheered. When Connor took Ryan's hand to walk out of the stadium, their matching bracelets catching afternoon light, Ryan knew with absolute certainty they were home, and nobody had to pretend anymore. Have you ever had to choose between safety and authenticity? Between what others expected and what your heart demanded? Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the courage to be real. If Ryan and Connor's journey moved you, like, share, and subscribe to Heart Stories for more stories about love, identity, and choosing yourself.